Hello, I'm Asif Khwaja from ATH Business Solutions. Today I want to show you how you can import SharePoint list templates on a site and create new lists using those SharePoint list templates. Microsoft has recently made some changes to the way that you can create SharePoint lists and also to the way that you can create new lists using the pre-existing lists. So let me quickly show you how we can create a completely new list manually. So once you are on your SharePoint site, so for example, we have this timesheets SharePoint site. And if you want to create a new list from the home page of this site, you can see this new button and you can click on the list to create a new list. Or alternatively, you can go into the site contents area of this SharePoint site. And again, on this page, you see this new button, and from there you can click on the list option to create a completely new list. But instead of creating a new list manually, if I want to create a new list using a pre-existing SharePoint list template, then this is not where I will go. For that, normally what we do is we go to the site's settings page. So from the site information, you click on view all site settings. And when you are on the site settings page, normally under the web designer galleries section, you will see an area called list templates. And from the list templates page, when you go in there, you will see a list template gallery. And from here, you can actually go and upload any SharePoint list template that you have already saved on your computer. But now Microsoft has changed some of this behavior. So now if you create a new SharePoint site, like a modern SharePoint team site or a communication site, then Microsoft does not give you this option. So you will not see this list templates section under the web designer galleries. And let me show you what I mean. To show you that, let's create a new SharePoint site. Now, if you create a new modern SharePoint site, whether you create it from the SharePoint interface itself. So if you go to the SharePoint homepage and you see this create site button, and from here, whether you create a new team site or whether you create a communication site, it doesn't matter. Let's create a communication site. Let's give it a dummy name. Let's call it site 1. Okay. Let's click on the finish button. So we are creating a modern communications SharePoint site. And it doesn't matter whether you create a communication site or a team site, whatever site you create by default with the modern interface, you will notice that when you go into the site settings page of that site, under the web galleries section, web designer galleries, you don't see any list templates section. So if we don't see a list templates section here, how do we access it? So as a workaround then, to access that list templates area, what we would do is we will actually use a direct URL, which will start with site name and then /catalogs/LT. So LT is for list templates. And that URL will actually take you directly to the list template gallery section here. Now from this area then, we were able to go into the files and upload documents, and we would actually upload the list template file in this section here. And now Microsoft has changed some permissions of this section, and we cannot even upload documents in this area here. So let me show you what I mean. Let's try uploading a SharePoint list template file here. I have already saved some SharePoint list templates in this folder, SP list templates folder, which is open here. You can see there are few STP files, which are the template files here, SharePoint list templates. Let's upload one of these files into our gallery here and see what happens. So if I now go and click on choose file, And on our desktop, in this SP list templates folder, here are our template files that we have. Let's choose this timesheet details STP file or any file for that matter and see what happens when I try to upload this template file into this gallery. So if I click on OK, it gives me this message, sorry, you don't have access. Now, I happen to be a site collection administrator for this SharePoint site because I created this site a while ago, yet it still doesn't allow me to upload this template file here. So even though as a workaround, we use the direct URL to access this template section, we cannot upload a template file in here to create a SharePoint list. Now, whether you create a communication SharePoint site or a modern team site, it doesn't matter. You don't see that list template area anymore. So how do we deal with this situation? Now, to deal with this situation, we have to create a classic SharePoint site. And the classic SharePoint team site cannot be created from the SharePoint interface. For that, you will have to go to the SharePoint Admin Center, which is open in this particular tab here. So you can see that I'm in the SharePoint Admin Center. If you don't know how to access the SharePoint Admin Center, please reach out to your SharePoint administrator and they will be able to help you. If your SharePoint administrator doesn't know how to create a classic team site for you, then you can refer them to this video and they should be able to do it for you. Now in the SharePoint Admin Center, under the active sites, you can see that all of the sites that already exist in your tenant will appear here. And right above these sites, you see this create button. When you click on the create button, it will again give you the team site and communication site option, just like you saw earlier from the SharePoint site. Now, both of these options will allow you to create a modern SharePoint site. And we do not want a modern SharePoint site to handle the SharePoint list templates. We need a classic SharePoint team site. And to create a classic SharePoint team site, you would go into the other options. And normally from the other options, we would select this team site option just until recently, and that team site option or template would create a SharePoint site for you that will allow you to manage the SharePoint list templates. But as I said earlier, Microsoft has recently changed some of the list template management options. Hence, even this team site option from here doesn't help you with that. All right. So watch carefully. Once you are here in the SharePoint Admin Center, then from the choose a template drop down, don't select any of these templates. Just click on more templates. And when you click on more templates, that will take you to a very old classic interface of SharePoint where you can create the classic version of the SharePoint team site. You can give your site a title. So let's call it Site 2. So previously we created Site 1 using a modern communication site. Let's call this one Site 2. And in the URL or path, you can give it a URL as Site 2. Okay. And under the template selection area, where it asks you to select a template, the default template is already selected for you as team site classic experience. If it is not already selected, please make sure that that's the template which is selected from here, team site classic experience. And then you can choose whatever time zone you are in. You can also put your name as the administrator. Make sure that your name is properly validated for your tenancy. You can leave the default resource quota as it is, and then click on OK button. Now, apparently, after clicking on this OK button, doesn't look like there is anything happening here, but yes, something is happening. You need to just wait for a while. And after a while, this new SharePoint site, there you go, will appear in your list of SharePoint sites. Now, please note that this new SharePoint site is being provisioned as a classic team site, Hence it is appearing here on this old classic site view. And once this site will finish provisioning, it will also appear on our modern SharePoint admin page. So let's give it a second. Now also note that on this classic page where this site is being created, in the ribbon above, it says that this page will go away on 1st of Jan 2021. So I'm guessing that even if this page goes away, where you see this site being provisioned, you will still be able to create this site the way that we just created it, and then you will be taken directly to the modern SharePoint administrator page instead of showing you this page here. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Something might change again. But here it is, our new site has been created here, the classic SharePoint site. So now you can close this page completely and go back to your SharePoint admin center, and let's refresh our page. And we should see our new SharePoint site created here. And sure we can. You can see that site 2 has been created. And if you notice under the templates column, the previous site that we created, which was site 1, was a communication site. And this one that we just created is a team site, but classic experience. If you create a modern team site, then you can create either a normal team site with all the Office 365 groups and everything, or you can create a team site without any Office 365 groups attached. Both of these team sites will have the modern interface by default now. But the classic experience site will not give you modern experience. This will give you, as it says, classic experience. So now if I go to the classic SharePoint team site, which is site 2, and you can clearly see that this gives you the old style interface for that site. But that doesn't mean you cannot create modern pages on this site. You can still go to the pages library and you can create a completely new site page. Give it a name. And you can see that it is a modern page. So even though we have created a completely classic SharePoint team site, you are still able to create modern pages. But by default, the home page of this SharePoint site is not modern. It's a classic page. But that doesn't matter. We are not interested in that at the moment. What we are interested in is that now if you go into the site settings page of this SharePoint site, which is a classic team site, you will see that under Web Designer Galleries section, you have all the classic options available, including the list templates section. Okay. So we can go into the list template section here now. And you can see that it still has same URL, the catalogs LT URL. But now if I go in and upload our SharePoint list template files. So let's upload the timesheet details SharePoint list template. Click OK. And there you go. You don't get any access denied error message here. And now I can click on Save button and you can see that the list file, the template file has been successfully uploaded. So you can upload whatever template files you have on this particular SharePoint site. So once you have uploaded all the list template files here in this library, you can then create the SharePoint lists using these templates. And to do that, you will have to go into the settings option and then click on Add an App option here. On the apps page here, you can just find your app by typing in the word timesheet, because that was the name of your template file that you uploaded. And you can see that the timesheet details template file appears here. If you have more templates that you have uploaded, they will all appear here now. So I can click on the timesheet details template and let's give this one the name. Make sure that you give it the name as per your requirements. In our case, we want to give it the same name as our template name, which is timesheet details, to make sure that we have the correct list as we require. So click on create button. And there you have it. You have created this SharePoint list using that template on this SharePoint site. This way, we can then go ahead and create all the SharePoint lists using those template files that we have uploaded. Once you have created all the SharePoint lists on this classic team site using the SharePoint list templates, then from here you really have two options. The first option is that you use this classic SharePoint team site as your data storage and save all of your data into these SharePoint lists that you have created on this classic SharePoint site. You don't need to create a modern team site or a communication site for that matter if you just want to store your data into a SharePoint site. This classic SharePoint team site should do what you want to do with these SharePoint lists. So that's your first option. The second option is that if you don't want to use this classic SharePoint site and you want these SharePoint lists on your modern site where we couldn't use those SharePoint templates, whether on a modern team site or on a communication site, then now that we have created these SharePoint lists on this classic team site, we can now create the lists on our modern sites as well. So let me show you how we can do that. So let's go to our site 1, which was our modern communication site, where we wanted to create those lists using the templates, but we couldn't because this modern site didn't give us an option to upload those SharePoint list templates. All right. But now that we have already created the lists on another SharePoint site in the same SharePoint tenant, the process is very simple to create those SharePoint lists on this modern communication site. So on your modern team site or communication site, go into the site contents, where you can see that we don't have any SharePoint lists created here. And now from the new option, if you click on list, you can see that Microsoft has changed the way we used to create lists. So this interface looks very modern. Now you can create a completely new list from blank option, or you can import a list from Excel, or you can create a list from an existing list. And that's the option that we will use. This page, by the way, also gives you these templates that you can use to create various different types of lists for different purposes. So I will leave it to you to explore these areas. So let's click on from existing list option. When we click there, then it will display us a list of all the team sites or SharePoint sites that we have available in our SharePoint environment. And you can see that it is also showing you site 2. And this site 2 was the one that we created as a classic team site. So when you select that site, you can see that it will show you all the lists that you created using SharePoint templates. All right. And now you can use these lists, which will be listed here. In this case, we have only one because we just created only one. But if you have multiple lists listed here, just select one of them and then click on next button and just leave it as it is if you want to keep the same name, and then click on create button. When you do that, you will have the same SharePoint list on your modern communication site or modern team site. All right. And the good thing about this option is that the list is created with the same details as the original template, all of the column names there. And even better, if you go into the list settings for this list that we just created, you will be happy to see that it has all the columns with same data types, as well as if you click on the indexed columns section, you will see that it retains all the indexes that we have created or defined in that list template. So that's the best part of using the list templates, that it retains all of the information. The benefit of using indexes is that then you can somehow manage the 5,000 item limit of your SharePoint lists. So there you have it. This is how you can create a SharePoint list on a modern team site or a modern communication site using your SharePoint template files that you have already created. Now, before we close, one last point that I want to make is that if you don't have the SharePoint list templates available or the STP files that we have here, if you don't have these files available, then there are two recommendations that I can make. One, that you create a new SharePoint list manually from scratch on your modern site, whether a team site or a communication site. Once you have created the SharePoint list and you want to replicate that SharePoint list onto another site in your environment, then it's easy. You can use the modern list creation interface to create another list using the existing list option and create the new list on another site. But if you want to create the same list in a completely different environment, then you will need to create a list template file or an STP file. And to create an STP file, you can follow the same technique that I just described in this video to go in and create a completely new classic Team SharePoint site first, and then create your list manually on that classic SharePoint site, because that classic SharePoint site will then allow you to save that SharePoint list as a template. And let me quickly show you what we mean. So if we go back to our site 2, which is our classic SharePoint site, and if I go into the site contents, and here is the list that we created from our template, the timesheet details list. Now if I go into the list settings for this list, you will see that it will give you an option to save this list as template. So you can click on the Save List as Template option, give it a file name, for example, timesheet details or template name, and then you can click on OK button, and this will save the template file or the STP file in your list template gallery, which you can then access from your site settings under the Web Designer galleries into the list templates. So you will see that your template will be saved here. Once it's saved here, you can click on it and download that STP file on your computer. All right, so I hope that this helps and clarifies the challenges with creating SharePoint lists using the template files. If you have any problems or issues, please let me know and leave your comments, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you. Bye.